let me go ahead and kick this off. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, man, this is a topic that I have been hearing so many people ask about, want to know more about. Almost since ChatGPT hit the scene almost 3 years ago, people want to know about AI search and how that's different than SEO and what the heck is going on with our search engine traffic. And all that stuff is such a big, I don't know if I'd call it a mess, but it's certainly changing really, really fast. And so I went out and reached out to one of my go-to resources when it comes to all things SEO, and that's Jesse McFarland with SpearPoint. He's the founder of SpearPoint. One of the things I love about the world that we live in, Jesse and I became friends through LinkedIn. I mean, we met through LinkedIn. We started engaging with each other's content. If you're not following Jesse on LinkedIn, I do have a link to his LinkedIn profile on the agenda. Be sure to check him out. One of the things I love about Jesse's content Jesse is that he shares all this great content on LinkedIn. Jesse, I love your carousels. They're very informative. I download a ton of them. So without further ado, let me just introduce Jesse to you. You want to say hi to the group, Jesse?
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. This is my second time being on this show, so super stoked. Been watching your show for quite a while too, so I'm just happy to be here. It's a beautiful day. We've already had some coffee. I'm ready to go, man. So let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, Jesse is one of our veterans and came on the show about a year ago and talked about all things B2B SEO. And back then, I don't think we were quite aware of the AI tsunami that we were going to see happening to search results. And so that's why we had to have him come back and help us unpack all this crazy stuff. And so Jesse, excited to have you here. Also wanted to introduce Lauren, our moderator. You want to say hi, Lauren?
Yeah, hi guys. It's good to be here today. I'll be in the chat. So if you got any questions, please drop them and I'll bring them up when the time is right. Otherwise, the agenda is in the chat. So
awesome. And guys, also just be sure to chat in as we go through. I love looking at all the chats. I've got your chats up here on my screen. We'll try to pull some of those in as we can as we go through the presentation. And so let's keep this interactive. That's one of the things that I love. And let's go ahead and jump into the agenda. If you're following along, the very first question that we've got to answer is, what the heck do we call this new thing, right? And by thing, I mean all this AI responses and AI answers that are showing up in search results and people getting traffic now from the AI tools like ChatGPT, and making sure that our websites are being recommended, that our businesses are being recommended, that we're getting some traffic from AI. Man, there's so many acronyms out there. I'm not sure that we've landed the plane on what we call it. And so I did a poll last week. Jesse, this was actually your idea. You're like, let's run a poll and see what the audience thinks. And so I did. And here's the poll. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And we just simply asked the question, hey, what should we call this new discipline of making sure that our businesses are getting recommended by chat engines, that we're showing up in the AI responses in Google responses and Google search results today? What do we call that thing? Now, I've been calling it LMO, which stands for Language Model Optimization. But there's also LLMO, there's GEO, there's AESEO. There's a lot of things out there. Jesse, were you surprised by any of these results?
Not really. I don't think anyone really knew what they were saying. I think I think everyone. I've seen a lot of GEO lately. I saw LMO a lot earlier. I saw even more AI SEO. But there's a brand that actually that uses that term, and so it's like a name of a company now, AI SEO. I always thought that one made the most sense, but then there's a brand that already owns that name. So I feel like that can't be that. So I don't know, man. I think it's whatever. If we did the same poll question 6 months from now, I think we'll get different data. We'll probably get even another acronym here.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the days of like the early pay-per-click days, because there was PPC, then there was SEM, then there was CPC. Do you remember all those days? Jesse, we couldn't figure out what the heck we called it back then.
Correct. Yeah. And then I think, and then that was always an interesting thing when you're, especially in the corporate world, when someone's using that acronym and everyone's too afraid to, no one knows what it is, but everyone's too afraid to like raise their hand and say, hey, what does that mean? I think we have that kind of probably that same problem here, or at some point. But
Yeah,
I was actually using LLMO for a while.
LLMO, yeah.
I think you encouraged me to drop the L because it is a lot to say. Um,
Yeah.
but who knows? We're calling it LMO though today, right?
Yeah, that's what I've been calling it. And I will tell you that I asked ChatGPT what the heck to call it. And ChatGPT did say that LMO is kind of the answer, but ChatGPT is a robot. So who knows? Humans may pick something entirely different. Hey, I'd love to know from you guys, what do you think we should call this? Chat it in. Should we call it LMO, which is language model optimization? Should we call it GEO, which, gosh, I always forget what the G is. Generative engine optimization. You can see that right there. AI SEO. That one seems to make a lot of sense to me because it's AI SEO. What do you guys think it should be? I'd love to see that in the chat. I see GEO. I see LMO. Yep. Natalie says LMO. Kelly says GEO. So I bet, Jesse, it's going to end up being probably LMO or GEO by the time all the dust settles. We're also, humans follow the path of least resistance, right? To your point, is LMO is easier to say than LLMO. I bet we end up with something that's 3 letters in the acronym and not, anything more than that. So anyways, that was a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see, like you said, Jesse, 6 months from now, we can run a poll again. We'll probably see something entirely different than that. So, well, that's interesting. Let's talk about really kind of the next topic that's on the agenda here. And that is, we're going to call it, for the sake of having one term for this session today, we're just going to call it LMO. So in your mind, Jesse, is LMO just a repackage of SEO, or is it something entirely different, or is it a hybrid?
It's definitely, I think, something different. It kind of depends. Now, if you want to be literal about, it's definitely different because SEO stands for search engine optimization, and LLMs technically aren't search engines. They can act like a search engine at this point. And maybe 6 months from now, maybe what we describe as a search engine might be a lot more broader term, and maybe that's the case. But right now, it's different. It's coming from a different source, and we've seen this before. Right. So is YouTube a search engine? No.
Right.
But do people search on YouTube to find answers to their queries? Yes. When you're shopping for a product, do you search on Google or do you actually search on Amazon to buy from Amazon? You probably search on Amazon. So there's different ways to search. What the tool is different. Since this is outside of a search engine, I'm calling it different, at least for now.
Yeah. And another thing about that too is the intention, right? So when we think about search or SEO, the purpose of search and SEO was really, do things on your website, do things on the World Wide Web at large, so that when somebody did a query on a search engine, like you're talking about, like on a Google or a Bing or whatever, but Google owns, is the 800-pound gorilla, that you're one of the blue links that shows up on the first page of the search results. And, maybe you're one of the blue links that shows up above the fold, although that's pretty much impossible to do today organically. And so it's all about, hey, getting a listing that will show up along other listings in search, hoping that somebody's going to click on that listing and run over to your website and then hopefully become a lead for your business. And, search engines these AI tools are totally different. It's not about links and clicks. It's really about giving answers. And so to me, that's one of the unlocks when we think about, there's some overlap with SEO and LMO, but how do we make sure that we're showing up in answers and not just blue links, right?
Yeah, very much so. So it's just it's a different return basically. And then how do you utilize it and how do you value it? It's probably different for every business. But I think right now there's just a lot of whenever there's something new, people want to know, like, hey, how do I utilize that for my advantage so I could, if it becomes more of a priority in the future, I'm already set. And I think that's where we're at right now. But still, the value of SEO, in my opinion, if you can get a click back to your website where you have, your conversion forms and a way to contact you, is still a much more valuable asset than appearing on LLMs. But who knows, that could change here in the future too.
Yeah. One of the things I think I saw in one of your LinkedIn posts was, it's, we may be getting less clicks to our website because of all this AI disruption and answers and things like that. But the clicks that we get are actually more valuable because they're more bottom of the funnel. There's higher intent to them. And so, that's a very interesting thing too, that we have to pay attention to. And we're just now trying to explore and figure all this stuff out at Vindy. But one thing that I have seen that holds true, and I know you're going to talk some more about this in the presentation today, is we've just been practicers of good content marketing. Like what the heck does our audience need to know about? Can we write intelligently about those things? Can we present that information in different modalities? And what we're finding, even without really doing any LMO, because we haven't done any LMO yet, we're showing up in the chats and ChatGPTs and the Perplexities of the world for like topics for our growth shows, various topics. Like Jesse, that you mentioned, you were on our show last year. If you go to Perplexity and you do a search for top B2B SEO ranking factors, like our growth show, the one that we did last year together, actually shows up as the top citation in that search result. So, just good old fashioned content marketing seems to be working as well. So let's move on to the next topic. And that's really all about kind of just piggybacking onto this discussion. And, we're getting answers. It's we're not always getting the clicks, but as you described, Jesse, we still want the clicks. What are there things that we should be looking for, things that we should be monitoring? How do we know if our clicks are going down? If the work that we're doing in LMO or SEO or just good old content marketing, how do we know if it's still paying off in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll share this in the slide deck, but you might have to do a little bit more creative or change up your however you display your metrics. And so you just might maybe have to do like a deeper dive. So for us, we've noticed that informational content has definitely been impacted, and informational content can be anything that's basically qualifies as a resource. The obvious is a blog post there. That's been impacted the most. And so if you look at total traffic as a major metric, you're probably going to see a dive. If you go a step further and you look at organic traffic, and then you have a bunch of blog posts that do really well or typically maybe used to deliver you a lot of organic traffic, you'll probably see a dive there as well. And so that doesn't mean SEO is still not valuable. What if you filter out the blog traffic? Maybe focus on the core pages that's most important to your business. That's the metrics that I would be more interested in anyway. Especially my goal is always has been since I started the business is conversions, not to rank number one on SEO or on Google or whatever. We always cared about conversions, so I'm more interested on the pages that have a closer or that are in the journey, closer to the journey that qualified into being a lead or some sort of revenue. And so that's a way to do it. Another way to do it too is like if you want to measure LMO, I think the best way to do it right now is referral traffic, at least clicks from LLMs. That's a great metric that you can look up on Google Analytics. That should tell you enough data there. But right now, there's a ton of tools, a lot of AI SEO tools right now. Or I'm sorry, a lot of AI SEO tools, and then your all-in-one SEO tools have this too, where you can track the keyword, specific keyword on LLMs. I have no idea how accurate it is. I have a bunch of companies, probably every other day, a new software company pings me to ask me to vet their software. There's a ton of them, but they're all kind of doing the same thing there. I just don't know how accurate it is. But basically, they take a keyword and then they're seeing how often it's your answers from that keyword are appearing on either ChatGPT, Perplexity, or whatever. So that I think that's the closest tool that we've seen so far. But again, it's pretty new and that could change here in the future.
One of the things, Jesse, that you said that I think is really important, and it's part of a bigger discussion, and that is that, the measurement really needs to be as close to the end game as possible. So, it's not about, am I number one organically in Google anymore, or as much as am I showing up in Perplexity when somebody does a search for my key phrase, but it's, can I do things in marketing that support the buyer journey that help inform our buyers that influence leads and ultimately pipeline and ultimately conversion. And so we're actually in the process right now of rethinking even how we measure success with our clients and with our own business, and focusing more on a ratio of impressions to qualified pipe to impressions to actual revenue. Because, not only is AI impacting the world, but buyer behavior has changed a lot. And so buyers aren't necessarily going to our website to get the information that they needed in the past. They're getting it from other places. They're coming to events like this. They're engaging with peers on LinkedIn. We literally get clients, and I bet this is true for you too, Jesse, where they never even visit our website. Like, they just completely are connected to us on LinkedIn and maybe following me on LinkedIn. And then they just DM me at some point and say, hey, I'm ready to go. Let's go. And so that's still a good qualified lead, even though that person never filled out a form. And I need a way of being able to tell that the work that I'm doing, the work that we're doing as a team, is actually influencing pipeline and revenue. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see just whole new ways of measuring success in the very near future.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of that has to do with just the strength of your overall brand, right? If you have a strong overall brand, you're going to probably appear in a lot of those platforms anyway. And a lot of it too could be is, Google might not always be the answer anymore. It might depend on what your ICP, what tools do they use. If you know that they use Google, great. Now, if you know that they use LLMs or ChatGPT, even better. If they use something different like Reddit or YouTube to find their information, now you know what search platform to use instead. So I think as with this goes, that's the direction. At least I think that we're going into, is this more about what the actual audience is using, which makes the most sense, right?
Yeah, I really liked what you said a couple of minutes ago too about how, clicking may be going away or getting reduced greatly, but you made a really good point that I don't think searching is going away, right? Like, people are going to search, and whether it's at ChatGPT or Perplexity or, X or, it doesn't matter. YouTube, people have questions they need answers to. They're going to be asking those questions somewhere. And to your point, Jesse, for our ICP, where are those questions being answered? And let's make sure that if we can't show up there, let's be part of the conversation at least, where they're trying to get the answers to those questions for sure. So that's really good. Well, I think that's a great segue into your presentation. You want to go ahead and jump into it and show us a thing or two about all this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share my right screen here. All right, I think we're good, right?
Yeah, looking good, awesome. Jesse.
Okay. All right, let's skip to what's relevant. I think we know kind of the difference of what we were talking about here. Search engines are your search engines like Google and Yahoo and Bing and DuckDuckGo, if you ever heard of that. LLMs is more what we're referring to is those AI tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and so forth. There's a bunch of others. But that's the difference here. This slide here, just kind of some subtle differences between SEO and LMO. So traditional SEO is more about ranking on search engines or ranking on Google SERP specifically. That would be the ultimate goal for most SEO strategies. Getting that and how you do that is using or optimizing for exact match keywords or keyword phrases, and then using that in the content, whether it's your header top content, your H1s, your metadata, using internal links, backlinks, whatever that is. But LMO is slightly different. It's more about being cited on platforms like our AI tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity. We have this thing called semantic clarity and contextual relevance. Who knows what that means? My definition is a clear meaning and staying on topic. So even better, maybe using topics that people are using that are very specific and are very clear of what people are actually searching for, and making sure your content that's what it's about. And then having that structure where it clearly describes that topic and then the meaning and the purpose of that throughout your content below it. So that's really the structure of it. And those are those big differences. And if we're going to go into the verses, I think this is kind of most important, or this is where we're at now, is like What? Okay, what, Jesse? Where I should be spending most of my time? What should I be doing? And right now, it's the data. I don't really know what the answer to that question is. Depending on who you ask, Google could be. I don't know. They might get anywhere between 8.5 and 14 billion searches a day. I've seen it up to like 24 billion searches a day. And then on LLMs, I've seen people say anywhere between 50 billion to or 50 million to 2 billion plus searches a day. So the point is, who knows? I don't know what the data is. There's just a lot of assumptions of right now, and it's just kind of like I don't know. There's just not a lot of clarity. And so what I did with this deck here is I'm gonna tell you what I know, and or at least what we know here at SpearPoint. And what we know, for at least for B2B SEO, is Google's still the king of search. We still get a majority of our organic search traffic is all coming from mostly it's still coming from search engines. That hasn't changed much. What has changed though is clicks are declining, and an interesting thing that when we're doing SEO work for our clients is we're seeing impressions still going up like we normally would, but the clicks are either staying the same or declining, which is very interesting. And traditionally, when you have more impressions, typically the traffic goes along with that. That's kind of stalled this year, and started to decline. So that tells me zero click searches are definitely on the rise. So people are still Googling this stuff, but they're not necessarily clicking on a blog post and read more about it. They might see the answer to a question in the AI SEO or just one of other Google SERPs that you see on a Google SERP page, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah. Hey, Jesse, if you don't mind, I want to just jump in there real quick. I shared that video with you earlier this week from Kieran Flanagan, who's the SVP of marketing over at HubSpot. Man, he had some interesting things to say around that. And it was for 10 years, this was an interesting ratio to think about how zero click is impacting us. For 10 years, we had this contract, the unspoken contract with Google, where they would crawl our content and the World Wide Web's content, but our content too. So think of yourself as a content creator. And then in exchange for them having permission to crawl your content, you would get blue links in their search results, and then they would sell ads around your blue links and everybody else's blue links. Now, the way they rewarded us for that is on average for 10 years, every 2 pages of our site that they crawled, they would give us on average about 1 click back. And so in 6 months ago, and that stayed the same for 10 years, 6 months ago, according to Kieran, that changed dramatically. And it went from 18 pages crawled on our website on average. You know, some websites are going to be outliers on either end of that spectrum. 18 pages crawled to 1 click, so 9 times harder. And then he went on to say it's even worse in the world of AI. So in AI, it's an average of 1,500 pages crawled. And most of us don't even have 1,500 pages on our website, right? Most of us have way, way, way less than that. But for every 15 pages they crawl, there's 1 click that's earned. And so I think that really drives home this point that zero click searching is absolutely rising.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much is that trend going to continue? Well, so far it has, but we'll see, what happens here in the future. On the other side of that is LLMs, and there's just a lot of buzz on LLMs and how that's being used at search. A lot of hype. A lot of thought leaders are jumping on this or claim to be thought leaders, but I just haven't seen a lot of trustworthy data to back it up. Again, like that previous slide, anywhere from 50 million to 2 billion searches a day. Who knows? Those ChatGPT doesn't share its data like that. So right now it's all based on assumptions. I think a lot of thought leaders will just they get their content from AI anyway, right? To create their content. But I think it's clear here that search is growing here, and one of the clear ways where I can see that is a rise in referral traffic. Clicks from ChatGPT. That's real data that I could actually see on Google Analytics. So I could see that's growing specifically in Q2, where I've seen websites get a lot of clicks in the referral traffic, but it's triple compared to what it was in Q1. And it's usually from clicks from those AI tools. So that's pretty promising there. Kind of going a deeper dive. So like I said before, I'm going to show you what we know at SpearPoint. And it just so happens that we do SEO for B2B websites. So we have we have some good data or a good read on this, on how it's affecting B2Bs. And kind of like what I said before, actually to start with this, established B2B websites are who's being impacted at the most. And an established B2B website, I would say, is a website or business that's been around for at least 5 years, 10 years or longer, that does some sort of either SEO or has some sort of organic search strategy, whether that's blogging or something like that. Those sites have been hit the hardest. And since March, we've seen a steady decline on just about all our established B2B websites. And I've seen that from other agency partners that I work with as well. Same type of metric there. But like I said before, if you filter out that traffic to see what's being impacted the most, it's clear as day that the traffic from blog posts specifically, or if you have a lot of resource pages, maybe on a webinar or something like that, those type of informational content's being impacted here, at least since March. On the other side, if we filter out what I call the higher intent pages, so pages that are more likely to lead to maybe a sale or a conversion, wherever your ultimate goal is on your website. If we filter out like home pages, services, products, about pages, see what the traffic is, what's happening on organic traffic for those pages, we've seen this relatively the same, or we've seen growth. So that's super encouraging to let us know that, okay, if my goal is to get more conversions with my SEO strategy, this change in LMO has not impacted our SEO strategy, which is awesome. And again, the other thing too that we've noticed is referral traffic is definitely increased, especially for established businesses, which I'm sure with Vendy Digital, that's what something you're seeing too. If I were to explore your metrics there too, Paul, I wouldn't be surprised you'd have the same similar data there.
Yeah, man, it's all about brand these days. I mean, there's all the things you're going to talk about here in terms of what we can do to make our sites crawlable, et cetera. But gosh, we've got to be doing things to get people to know that we exist and the problems that we solve and all the places that they go figure that out, because that's what drives referral traffic more than anything.
Yeah. Are there any other end of the spectrum, if you're not an established B2B website, maybe you're a smaller business, maybe you're a startup, maybe you don't have like an organic search traffic strategy, customers like that are usually new for us. There hasn't been much impact at all. They just don't have enough content there for LLMs to take away some of that traffic. But anyway, that's the data that I feel comfortable with sharing here and making assumptions off that. So to me, this is the most important slide on this deck. But I think most people here would want to know, well, okay, how do I appear on LLMs? And of course, I have some of that information too, right?
Right. And so the net of that is the world is changing. And as much as we wish we could still get a ton of traffic from search and that we're not going to see a dip in our traffic, there's nothing that we can do to control that. You know what I mean? It's like, it is what it is, right? And it's something that all of us need to be managing up and talking to our leadership about, because you don't want to get that hand slap for having a report that shows your traffic going down and not having a good reason to explain it. And Jesse, I think you did a great job of explaining what's really going on.
Yeah, and at least right now, if you have a boss that cares about organic traffic, filter out your blog posts and see what happens, and look at that data. Look at your referral traffic. There's still some wins in there possibly that you can possibly share there, at least to instead of just a total traffic that shows a decline.
Right. Exactly. And going back to what we just talked about too, it's like, hey, if leads are up and pipe is up, does it really matter if our traffic's down? Right.
Correct. Yep. Exactly. So how do you appear on LLMs is really kind of the question I think I get on a daily basis. Paul, it sounds like you do quite often as well. And so of course I have some slides on this. And these are all things from our experience at SpearPoint. These are things that we've practiced. and what is stuff that we've seen results from us, right? So we're not asking ChatGPT on how to do LMO. This is stuff that we're actually doing that we've seen results from. First of all, it's the most important thing is eat. And if you're working with an established or a good SEO agency, or you have a good SEO partner, or you have a good SEO person that's doing your SEO work and they're doing eat, you're probably in a good place. You probably have a good chance, assuming that you have relevant content, you probably have a good chance to appear on LLMs. And that's definitely the most important thing here. And that's why it's like, I don't know, 85 or 90% of this pie that I created here, just to give you a general idea. But EAT is experience, expertise, authority, and trust. If that's too confusing, really think of the power of your brand, how much brand awareness, how much brand trust you have. And then the other thing too, specifically, is like your domain authority. So not just a brand, but how powerful your website, your domain is on your website. That's the other thing as well. If you're hitting the mark on that, again, you're probably in a good spot to rank well on, be cited on LLMs. The next thing too is like, how are you searching, or what are you searching for? And so I kind of broke it up in 3 sections. The first 2 we're going to talk about here is local recommendations and brand placements. First, local recommendations. Local recommendations is basically if you do a search for like something close by, something within a city, or an example could be like, I'm looking for a product or service near me, right? That's in SEO terms, we call that local SEO. Here, it's just more of a local recommendation in LLM. EAT is still important here, but where do a lot of these, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, what do they look at first? We've noticed citations and directory websites. Like your Google business profiles is pretty important there. And then a lot of it too is like industry specific sites. So I have a marketing agency. Clutch is a very important directory in my world. I know if you're looking for, a digital marketing agency near you or an SEO agency near you, probably Clutch is one of those directories that ChatGPT, for example, might be looking at. If you're a SaaS company, it might be G2 or whatever. But the citations is really, really important for local recommendations. Brand placements could be, give me the top 5 businesses that do X, right? And to get featured in that, it's all about brand trust. I put years in business because I've seen that very over and over again. So if you're 20 years of experience and you have that on your Google business profile and you have that on your website, you showcase that, that's a very big advantage compared to someone that's been around for 2 years, right? So I've seen that a lot. Reviews from review sites, like your Google business profile or those local citations that I have on the left. And then domain authority is the other thing that I see a lot of, like, that's really powerful when it comes to like brand placements.
Yeah, a couple of things on that, Jesse. Spot on in so many ways. One thing that we've actually added to our framework that we've been, developing and optimizing for 20 years, we kind of ended with, staying top of mind with our customer as like the last pillar of our framework. But now we've actually added growth and retention as another pillar. And it ties into this because part of the goal, especially in the world of AI, is how can we get our customers to become advocates, and not just advocates quietly, but advocates in a very public way. So you mentioned like Clutch and G2 and BB, the Better Business Bureau. Man, in today's world, those things are so critical. And so we're talking to our clients about, hey, the game doesn't stop. The marketing game doesn't stop at the closed one. The marketing game is still going on. So how do we bake into our processes ways after somebody's onboarded, after somebody's at a contract renewal, whatever those things are, so that we're asking for that LinkedIn review. We're asking for them to go to G2 or Clutch and write a review. We're getting video testimonials and putting them on our website. Those are so important. And that's all food for these AI engines, the LLMs, as they're trying to figure out what we're all about.
Yeah. I think it's probably the most valuable thing for your, like, as a return, is doing exactly that. And especially if you build it in part of your process. If it's in your process, then your whole customer journey is going to be better anyway, because if that's, if you plan to ask every customer on month 3 or month 6 or something like that to get a review, then you better be doing a good enough job to make that
Exactly.
ask, right? So yeah, it's definitely a great practice, and it definitely pays off in the market in any type of marketing here.
Yeah, word of mouth advertising's always been the best form of advertising, right?
Correct. Yep. And then the other thing is informational citations. And again, informational type of intent is usually coming from blog posts, from websites. Again, EAT, can't say it enough. EAT, super important. But here are some other things. And these are actually some things that we added to our SOP when we're optimizing for blog posts for our B2B customers and even for our own business. The first one is TLDR and key takeaways. TLR is what too long, did not read, right? And it's basically a summary. It's another way of saying a summary of your business, or I'm sorry, a summary of the blog post. But we also include key takeaways because we want to make it very clear to our LLMs that this is what this blog post is about, and this is the purpose of this blog post. Right there up front, right at the beginning, towards the beginning of the blog post. So that's something we've added in our SOP. Another thing is fresh, up-to-date content. This has always been super important for us. So if you have an awesome blog post that's how to do something in 2024, that might have, that might not be as relevant as the same type of content that says how to do something in 2025, right? And so that's just an example of keeping your content updated, and how you could refresh your historical content to make it more likely to appear in LLMs. And it goes even further than that. We're in Q3 now, right? So Q2 is more valuable than Q1 at this point, and so forth. So that's another way to look at it. If it's more modern, that's super important. Super clear headings, that's pretty obvious. Fact-rich and citational-friendly content. So content that's more likely to be cited or shared is really important. A unique author point of view. This is really important. So if everyone, or if a lot of people are using AI to create their content, then the chances are that a lot of people or a lot of different websites are seeing the exact same thing. So having a different point of view is super valuable. And even more important, if that point of view is from an author or an expert with some personal brand behind it, boom, that's the golden ticket right there, right? So that's going to help even move the likelihood even more there. So having quotes from experts is super valuable. And this is something that we've added as well, is always have author pages on your website. Got to have that. But on every blog post, we have a little author summary at the bottom about the author and a link to their bio page, something you can easily add, and then a link to their LinkedIn page and so forth. If it's not a known author, it's not going to be as important, but if it's the same person over time, then they'll start to build some credibility there. If it's someone like Paul Slack that has some brand equity or some personal branding, that's a good tactic for Vendy Digital, right? To put his name as the author there. So that's a very, I think, important thing to do with getting your blog content featured on LLMs.
Yeah.
Paul, do you have anything else
Jesse,
to add?
How many times have you seen a blog that was posted by, right under the title, posted by admin? And that's like one of the most deadly things you can do when it comes to SEO, especially in this world of EAT and LMO, because somebody wrote that. Somebody at your company wrote that. You need to turn, like you said, turn that person into a thought leader. And those are some great, easy ways to do that. If you want examples of that, check out our blog. All of our authors, including myself, we have bio pages. We haven't done your great idea of having a little about the author snippet at the bottom. That's a great idea, but we do make sure that every one of our posts has an author. And then there's a link to our author page. And then we've built an optimized author page for every one of those with our headshot and a bio and all the articles that we've written. Those are really important. Hey, have you heard about, this is something that we're about to try, Jesse. It's called an AI disclosure page. And it's like a page that you put at the bottom of your in the footer of your website. So it's not really designed to be navigable by humans. Certainly humans could see it, kind of where your privacy policy links and all that stuff are. And it's like an AI disclosure page where you're just giving all of the relevant information about your company, how many years in business, what's your description of your company, the industries that you serve, the clients that you work with, all of that kind of stuff, where it's just as they're crawling your site, they hit that page and there's just reams of information, even links, kind of Wikipedia-like, to other parts of your site or other places where you have a footprint on the World Wide Web. Have you heard about that, or do you know anything about that, or do you know if that would work, or what are your thoughts even?
Yeah, I've heard about that. I have no idea if it would work. I think they say having structured snippets and stuff like that could be you have that already on your site within the code. If you're doing it correctly. So you can get that same kind of information there. But if it's a little bit of like a step further, it possibly could work. I'm just not really sure if an LLM would be more likely to scrape all the information on your site before it shows an answer to a query.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, we are a couple of months ago, we had Navu on as our guest. You can go back in our archives and find that episode. And we were talking about AI enabled websites and having AI enabled chat, and how, it's not just all the stuff we're talking about today isn't just about search and showing up in search, but really, really soon our websites are going to start acting like this too, because our buyers are going to expect it from us. Our buyers, we're always going to follow the path of least resistance. We don't want to read 1,000 words of copy. We want to ask a question on our website, on Google, wherever, and we want to get an immediate answer. And so, I really do believe these AI-enabled chatbots are going to be a huge part of the future, the best ones where they can really give you good ChatGPT-like answers about your business and only about your business. And so I've been really thinking about, especially when I look at our clients and how they just don't have enough information on their website to really provide a good, relevant answer experience to that chatbot. So that's one of the reasons we're also thinking about these AI disclosure pages, as just a way to quickly even get a chatbot up to speed so it can really give good, relevant answers to the buyer.
Yeah, and we've had kind of that request from some of our clients too that use like a chat, some sort of chat feature to update that type of information on their privacy page, or another resource like that how we use AI and there's some disclosure about that. So I could definitely see that as just a good practice at the end of the day anyway. But how it benefits you for LLMs, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, good point. One thing that I also want to do, and I think you mentioned it here, is just we've been doing this show this is our 4th season. We have 0 transcripts on our website. We have every one of these videos on our resource page and 0 transcripts. And I feel like that's just a missed opportunity for getting, like you said, point of view, thought leadership content, the kind of stuff that rolls off of the tip of your tongue when you're in a session like this, I think is really important for those LLMs to learn and understand, but I don't know that they can really understand that in a video. They have to see the transcript in order to get an understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, but the big thing though is it's got to be clear. So, when you're talking off the cuff, like when we're doing, it's somewhat organized. It might not always be clear when it's transcribed as well. So some modifications might need to be required there. So you have to go and edit those transcripts so make sure it flows well, and then it's structured in a way that LLMs can clearly understand it. That's the way I would use it. And I've done transcripts as well. I've done plenty of that, and we do the same thing for SEO purposes. We see this transcript and you read it and you're just like, man, we're all over the place here. Let's like reformat into something a little bit more user friendly to read, something a little bit more maybe more optimized for Google search. Same practice there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So more of a summary than the actual transcript.
Yeah, exactly. Now you might have some really good point of view author stuff in there that you want to highlight. I would definitely have a big section on that stuff too, but it probably need to be unless you have a really clear speaker, that's not me, someone really clearly and well organized when they're talking. Otherwise, if you don't have that, it's going to need to be restructured and probably.
Yeah, I'm sure we could build a prompt that could take that ChatGPT or to take that transcript rather and pull out all the gold nuggets, put them in there as a summary, and then have a summary below it or something like that.
Yeah, so, there's definitely tools that do that too. So yeah, I played around with those as well.
Great.
Yeah, all right. So this is kind of like my closing thoughts here, and then we can kind of go. I'm sure there's questions that we can answer. But like you said before, people are still searching. I've been doing SEO since 2007. And I think the first time I heard SEO was dead was like in 2011 or 12, something like that, when Facebook started to really take off on their visitors. That was the first time I heard SEO is dead. And then I've heard it, I don't know, multiple times a year ever since then. And so it's 2025, SEO is still not dead. But at this point, you could probably say, at least right now, or what it looks like, search engine optimization might be an outdated term, that engine part. I've been saying more search optimization before, or lately, I'm sorry. And again, it's not just about showing up on a search engine like Google. It's showing up on ChatGPT, showing up in other places like your ICP is searching, you're using, whether it's YouTube or even Reddit or whatever that is. Search is what's important, not where that traffic is actually coming from.
Oh my gosh, Jesse, I love that. That's even less letters. We should just call this thing SO.
So,
right? Yeah, so let's go show our websites.
It makes sense to me, right? We're searching and then we're optimizing for search. Let's take a letter out of there and just be, let's just call it.
That's way better than adding a bunch more letters to it, right?
Yeah. And then if you're doing something very specific, then you can say, hey, Google optimization or ChatGPT optimization if you want to, but it's all under the umbrella of search optimization to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's what really matters. Yeah.
Love that. Well,
yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse. Wrap us up.
I think that's pretty much it. I do have a blog post. I was calling it LLMO. I'm starting to favor more LMO to drop a letter. And but I do have a blog post if you want to check that out. It's SpearPoint.com. Go to the blog, and then I talk about basically what I did today and a lot more in detail in this blog post if you want to read that kind of stuff. And then I do have a section on how to track these type of metrics there, at least from what we know today, which I think is that's another question I get a lot is like, where do I track this data? There's just not a lot of good answers yet for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, great presentation. A lot of things to think about here. To your point, some of the mega themes I heard was, good old first principles like EAT, making sure that we are presenting ourselves as experts, that we have expertise, that we're managing a steady diet of good, informative content marketing, that we're sharing our point of view. And if we're just doing that blocking and tackling stuff right there, and then maybe adding in, let's make sure that we're getting in the clutches and the G2s and all those places in the world that we're getting our clients to go say good things about us. Those are all probably going to help us a lot as we figure this thing out together. And, Jesse, we'll have you on again next year. We'll probably know a whole lot more then than we actually do now, right?
Exactly. Yep. That's definitely the goal. Right. And I'm sure we will. Right. It's constantly changing. It's an interesting time. I would definitely have to say.
It totally is. And it's changing every day, really, really, really fast. Hey, Lauren, are there any questions? I saw a bunch kind of flowing through as we went through this. Anything you want to tee up to make sure that we get those answered while we got Jesse with us today?
Yeah, we've got a couple. Gabrielle Barr, she wants to know, you guys were talking about SEO and, are the former tactics still viable? She wants to know if having average position ranking for KPIs, is that still even useful in today's LMO scape?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's still relevant. For me, like I said, in my business, we all my clients care about conversions or sales or leads, something like that, right? So that's always the top metric. Now, how we get there is like, working your way backwards from there. That's how we kind of get into those kind of data points, right? And so we're trying to get traffic from organic traffic to increase, and then any other non-paid traffic to increase for our clients. So we're looking at organic traffic, we're looking at referral traffic, and other platforms like that to actually see, okay, how much organic traffic is turning into conversions, and how can we increase that? And then if we're noticing that we're not getting enough organic traffic, then the next step would be like, okay, how do we get more organic traffic? And that could be from having higher keyword rankings. So a KPI is a key performance indicator. I just went down like 4 steps to get to, keyword ranking. So is that a key performance indicator? I don't really know, possibly, but it's definitely an indicator, right? So that's the way I would answer that, is starting what's your ultimate goal, and then working your way backwards of how you can get to your ultimate goal. Those are the metrics that should matter.
Yeah, that's really good, Jesse. And one thing I've seen you say before, even in social media, one thing I love about the way you think about search in general is, going and looking at Webmaster Console and looking at impressions versus click-through rates, because that kind of encompasses more than just a page and its rank. So, hey, we've got impressions that we're showing up for, but we've got low click-through rate for these. What can we, and these are the pages that are showing up. How can we go do something on those pages to get our click-through rate to go up a little bit more? That's maybe a better key performance indicator than are we number 1 in Google versus number 112 in Google, right?
Correct. And another way too is like if you have another metric, like you're measuring all the pages that deliver leads, for example, you can say, okay, for what pages are delivering leads, right? And then what are your highest traffic or highest performing pages, and are those generating leads? If not, why? Or do you not have enough? Are you missing some CTAs in there? Are you missing a step in the next for engagement in there? That's how we do a lot of our optimization. There is, we start from conversions and we work our way backwards from there.
That's perfect. Love that. That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
Lauren, any other questions? You're muted.
I muted myself. Okay, sorry. This one may have a fairly simple answer. Megan wanted to know, you guys were talking about referral traffic in Google Analytics, and is that the category that AI traffic is basically falling into in GA4?
Yeah, that's where it is. It's so referral traffic is from, like, if you get a click from any other website. So if you get a click from another website that has a link, like a backlink, we call that in SEO world, they click to your site, that's a referral. And then referral traffic is also under the umbrella, like if you're getting a click from ChatGPT or Perplexity from there, that would also quantify as a referral traffic. You should see that in your referral traffic report in Google Analytics.
Awesome. And this sounds like, Paul, a question a colleague of ours, Ray, might ask. I think we discussed this before, but let's discuss this here. Do we think that senior, this person said senior folk, but like C-suite and VPs and things like that, trust search results from ChatGPT, or would they stick to like the older habit of like browsing through pages? When we've talked about with our colleague Ray, like, are they he always want to know, are they skipping the AI result, or are they actually going down to click links?
Yeah, I just saw a report on that. I think it was G2 that came out with a report that was showing trust, like a percentage of trust from a search result page versus there was multiple things. So it was search result, it was an AI result, it was a company's brand and their own content, it was like peers and what peers say. And obviously peers were at the highest level, but I can't remember if AI was higher than search or the other way around, but I'll find that and I'll drop it in our community, the Demand Gen Jammers group, the answer to that question there. So if you're not part of our Jammers group, go find that on LinkedIn. There's actually a link to that in the agenda. So great question. I bet that's going to change, though. I bet even if search is higher than AI, I think as we get more institutionalized and comfortable with talking to AI and we see it hallucinate yet less, I think we'll start trusting it more.
Yeah. You got time for one more? It looks like Elias just asked a really good question.
Yeah, let's go for it. We got 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, Elias is asking, people really search for like ultra high specifics in AI, especially. Like I do that myself. So are generic blogs really going to cut it anymore? Are we going to need to find ways to write more content, but more specifically?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, let me kind of answer that in the way that we do it. And the way we do it is we have our blog posts. Our first complaint of every new client is like, man, your blog posts are super long. And the reason why we're doing that is we're trying to probably pretty much cover everything under that topic there. And that's why they come across so long. If you're reading it, that's a reader's nightmare, but we're not necessarily making it readable. We're making it either scannable, or we're trying to find one section in there that might be the winner, or might be, generate a lot of traffic for that entire page. And so having your content structured on different topics, that's very specific. That's what's more important, because Google's been doing this a long time. Google doesn't not only share the page, but they share the page that has that section in that content. Mm-hmm. And AI does it. They go a step further. So as long as you're covering a very specific topic somewhere on that blog post, and it's structured and it's well organized or whatever, that's the way you can get featured on LLMs, and it's a good practice for Google as well.
So Lauren, Jesse just said long blogs are good. But
he also said that that's a reader's nightmare. So
yeah,
she gives me crap all the time about the blogs I write. She says I write too long. I'm too wordy.
At Mindy right now, we're trying to take the approach where we'll have a long blog that's super thorough, but we still write reader-centric blogs that
I think that's a balance. It's good. We have different tactics. So we have our blog posts that we're doing that, and then we have shorter ones that are more readable. And we have a different strategy involved. Those probably better for being shared on social media as something to read about. Or like we do a lot of backlinks. That's a big part of our service. It's become even more important for us, for our customers this year. Those type of blog posts that are shorter, more specific to websites as a backlink, those seem to be a lot more shareable. And so it's just a different SEO strategy. Those might not be shown on an LLM, but it's helping bring the domain trust of our entire site is what we're trying to do.
All goes back to eat there too, for sure. Yeah. So, well, hey guys, we're at the top of the hour. We're actually a minute long. Thanks for hanging with us. Be sure to check out the agenda. We've got an awesome resource that we made available to you guys called the AI Visibility Cheat Sheet. It's down there at the bottom. You can also register for next month's B2B Growth Show. We're going to be talking about all things partner marketing and channel marketing. Such a hot topic today, maybe not as hot as LMO, but something we all need to be thinking about. And we've got a great guest with mPartner joining us next month, so you want to register for that. And then be sure to follow Jesse, man. He has got great insights on all of this stuff. There in the agenda, you've got a link to his website, and you've got a link to his LinkedIn page. Jesse, I love your content. I love partnering with you. You're an awesome guy and an awesome guest. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you guys. We'll see you next month. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Everyone.